My fear foods used to scare me more than anything. They used to scare me more than venomous snakes. They used to scare me more than heights. They used to scare me more than death itself. My fear foods, in fact, were such a big thing to me that they weighed more than socializing with friends, spending quality time with my family, taking good care of my body. They made me afraid to take good care of my body and nourish it with what it genuinely needed. They kept me stuck at home, hiding away from anyone and everything. And today I want to share my secrets and how I overcame my fear foods and how I conquered them so that nowadays they no longer hold any power over me. They no longer scare me in the least. Because food is just food. The secret? Exposure. Exposure therapy is actually used for so many anxiety disorders that it's crazy how it's not the norm in eating disorder recovery. Because the fact of the matter is, if you face a fear once, it's absolutely terrifying. Your anxiety levels shoot through the roof. But guess what? They then go back down to baseline. And when you next face that fear and they shoot up again, they don't shoot up quite as high. And if you keep repeating that cycle, in the end, facing that fear is not going to be a fear anymore. And that's when you know you've overcome that fear food. You've won that battle. This seems like a really simplistic answer to a really complex issue. And yes, eating disorders are hella complex. But it works, and I've seen it work time and time again. Try it for yourself. Face your fear and then sit with that discomfort. Don't compensate, because that will ruin the whole process. But sit with the discomfort. Show your body that it's okay to eat that fear food and not react. Your feelings will come and go, and how you behave is up to you. Anyway, it's with this principle in mind that I started the Fear Free Challenges Advent calendar at the start of December. And I am so damn proud of every single one of you who has joined the challenges. I, too, have joined in on all of them, and even though they didn't scare me in the least anymore, it did make me reflect on how scary these things used to be. The amount of times I used to cry at the dinner table, and how over time that's completely changed, and it is through behaviours such as this. So once again, let me repeat, I am so proud of you. Obviously, this is not the end all be all. You can't just face a fear once and expect it to be gone, but it's a good starting point. If you joined, which of these fears stood out to you? Which of them caused you most discomfort? There's your cue that you should probably be facing that fear again, and again and again and again, until it no longer induces that same fear response. Until you come out the winner of that fight. On day 1, we faced chocolate. I hope you challenged this food multiple times that day, and that you have challenged it since. On day 2, we challenged bread. Again, I hope you challenged this multiple times too, and in multiple forms and with multiple different toppings. It's great to face your fears multiple times, and preferably to do it in different contexts or in slightly different formats, if that makes sense. Because I definitely know that once I overcame the fear of regular sliced bread, I still feared buns or croissants or other similar but not quite the same foods. Challenge them all. Day 3, restaurants. This one used to terrify me, genuinely terrify me. And somehow now, in the past week-ish, I've sat down at over 10 restaurants without a moment of doubt, without a moment of hesitation, and without a moment of fear or discomfort. The only discomfort being if maybe I ate a bit too much, but that is okay. And that is the power of repetition. Not only does the fear diminish, but you get to try so many new things. You get to experience so many new things. And that's incredible. Why would you want to miss out on that? When I first started ordering food out at restaurants, I remember ordering the same meals again and again and going to the same places. That was my starting point, and after a while, this felt easier. That's when I knew I had to start going to different places and ordering different foods and branching out. Even trying the foods I'd never had before in my life. But it's okay if this goes in stages. Start where you're at, but don't forget to progress from there. Nowadays, I go where I want to, I order what I want to, but this isn't something that happened overnight. I promise that if you hang in there though, it's something that will happen. Day 4 of this challenge brought us cake. Thanks again for all the birthday wishes. And day 5 brought us granola. I had both these items probably for a week straight. It was grand, and not at all scary. Even though I didn't fit a single workout in all of this time. Genuinely, lifting all those boxes, getting all of this mayhem out of those boxes, it's been more of a workout than my general workouts. What was scary though was the surprise party my parents threw for us. I had no idea what they were going to do, and yeah, I guess there definitely is still that little bit of fear of the unknown, but not for food. I won't let food hold that kind of power over me ever again in my life. Because food is more than food. Food is social, food can be fun, food is also convenience, it is fuel, it is pleasure. In recovery, food is life. But it doesn't really matter either in the grand scheme of things. It's great to enjoy a meal, but it's also okay to eat an average, or at times a below average dish. That's not a waste. It's great to eat out socially, but it's also fine to eat alone. You are no less deserving of this meal. Food is also just food, and it shouldn't hold any moral value. We are now in Thailand, so some of that footage seems a little bit outdated. However, at the same time, it isn't. Challenging your fear foods is the best thing you can do. And whether that footage is a month old, a year old, 5 years old, I think the message is there. Face your fears, face them repeatedly. Anyway, as I said, I'm now in Thailand, and the kind of food experiences we've had here have been wild as well. I will be sharing some of that footage later. Let me know in the comments what you want to see upcoming, what we eat, what we're doing, whatever. Let me know. Day 9, pastries. I love pastries. Croissants, pasties, cinnamon buns, churros. I actually had my first ever churros in Madrid, and they definitely won't be my last. That's the beauty of food freedom. Sometimes you eat when you're bored, or because it's more convenient at that time, or because this may be your last chance to try something out before you move on to the next location. Whatever the reason, there's no judgment, because food and food choices, it's not a moral decision. Your value, your worth, or anything about you, it doesn't depend on what you eat. No one will judge you for it. Don't judge yourself for it. It's really not worth it. Sure, I'm happy to call a meal big or small or tasty or average or colourful or insert other descriptor here. But I won't ever call it good or bad or unhealthy or attach any real value to that. Because food is just food. Day 10, cheese. As I said, the eating disorder is sneaky. And there were quite a few times when I thought I'd overcome a fear, only to find it sneaked back in a different context. So cheese on bread when having lunch at home was okay, but not if I took it out, or not if it was melted cheese, or not if it was on top of a lasagna. Crazy, right? Day 11 brought us pasta. Pasta was one of those foods I became okay with really quickly. But penne and ravioli, for whatever reason, for the longest time they were a no-go. Penne, simply because of its shape. Ravioli, because it tended to be a bit heavier and made me more aware of my body. But guess what? None of these options is worse than another. These things should all be fine to eat, and exposure is the answer. Day 12 marked our travel back from Santander to Portsmouth, UK. On the ferry back to the UK, we packed raviolis with tofu sausages, and we also brought lots of snacks and ate the meals they provided on the boat, not actually knowing what these meals would be beforehand. We drank water, but also juice, and also coffee. Before getting on the boat, in fact, when I had a bit more choice over my meals and my drinks, I did also opt for different meals and different drinks, and that's okay. Liquid calories used to scare the living daylight out of me. But now, even the word liquid calories seems alien. So yeah, water is great and hydration is your friend. But do also face these other drinks, these other things that might seem less essential. Sure, you can probably get away with water in pretty much any situation, but would you rather be able to just get away with things or actually make your choices out of free will? Actually not be afraid of that Coca-Cola or that orange juice or that glass of milk? I know which one I prefer. I, for example, can now genuinely enjoy a hot chocolate on a cold day or a cold iced tea on a hot one. Throughout the month of January, I also tried out these matcha shots, which I really loved and which definitely provided me a good boost of productivity. Something I would have never tried in the past. Anyway, as I said in one of my previous videos, I do have a discount if you want to try out these shots. They make great travel-sized vessels, so go and get your own using the discount code below. You won't regret it. Day 13, fried food. I don't love them on the whole. I find that they can be a bit heavy and, I don't know, personal preference, but if done properly, well, they can be damn good. Take Spanish croquetas, which I ate 3-4 times in the past week before getting back to the UK. I'm not sorry. In the past, some fear foods I faced alone. Others I faced with other people. A support network. We do make different decisions when we're in social situations and when we do have external accountability sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you feel like you need that support, if you feel like that would help push you in the right direction, then go for it. The beauty is that you do not need to do these challenges alone. I recently published my recipe meal support service, and you could also reach out for a free discovery call or ask your family or your friends for help. Alternatively, or additionally, set up a plan with a dietitian. Create an external source of accountability before you find that you've got this accountability within yourself and you can do this. Butter actually used to be one of those sticking points for me. I never really liked it on bread, never really had as a child, and I still don't really. And when it was worked into dishes, this freaked me out completely. In hospital, I then had to put it on bread, which made me feel a bit resentful, and I plain refused to do it. And I guess in this way, I stood in my own way of overcoming this fear food at that time. Butter is therefore one of those things that I had to face after leaving hospital, on my own. Anyway, at first I sort of started accepting it a bit when used for frying things up. Then I thought it was okay in sauces when prepared by my mum. Later in restaurants, and only further down the line, was it alright if I cooked with butter? For you, that whole hierarchy might look different. But come up with your own plan of conquest and take it a step at a time. Or jump right in, whatever you prefer, as long as you don't compensate. You get to try a lot of new things, and you may discover new favourite foods. Even before my eating disorder, for example, I didn't really eat nuts or nut butter. And it was in recovery that I discovered these foods, that I discovered the good old PB, peanut butter. And my body realised that it was full of everything it needed. Nutrient density, fats, calorie density. And for a while it became a little bit obsessed. That is, until my body weight stabilised, until my hormones rebalanced, until my body trusted once again that I gave in to my cravings rather than fighting them. Then this phase passed, was replaced with another, and then another, until nowadays I've reached a place where I no longer question or analyse my body's cues. I no longer have crazy cravings either. And I just follow whatever craving does come up, whenever and wherever it guides me, knowing it's temporary and it's a sign by my body of what it wants and needs. Because the body does know what it wants and needs, and a lot of the time my body tells me to eat pretty healthily and to fall into routines in terms of food choices, meal times, etc. During my recovery, however, my body had no sense of this, no sense of homeostasis, no sense of routine. So I had to challenge any routine. Obviously, I had to establish certain routines in terms of regularity and sufficiency of meals. But once I found that I was sticking to the same safe foods over and over, that was my cue to step up my game. I had to challenge certain safe routines in order to allow my body to establish its own genuine routine. Tiramisu is actually my all-time favourite dessert, and I would never have known had I not tried out new things, and had I not embraced recovery, which allowed me to try these new things. And genuinely, it's an enrichment to my life. Particularly this recipe is so good. It's in my recipe ebook meal support guides, so definitely check that out. A bit lighter than most standard recipes, it's a vegan alternative that I highly, highly recommend. My mum, who doesn't really like tiramisu, loves it too. So there's your cue to get the recipe ebook. It was really easy to hold on to habits, to grab onto them, particularly when these involved very gradually reducing portions or gradual changes back into safe behaviours. But it was necessary. If yogurt and fruit had become the easy breakfast option, I opted to add a glass of milk or to have toast instead. When I'd had a full English for a week straight, I added in an extra element still. If you have no idea, look back at your childhood favourites and the kinds of meals you used to have, and at your culture and the kind of meals that are traditional there. Then look beyond this too. Try to have a bit of fun with it, test out new things, push these boundaries. Go abroad and eat the traditional cuisine there. An eating disorder can take your sense of identity. It can take your preferences and morph them. But there is no such thing as too late in claiming these back. Go and rediscover yourself, your preferences, your passions, and start by claiming back your choices. At times by making these choices yourself, and at times by allowing others to do so for you. As long as this other is not the eating disorder, of course. If you find this process uncomfortable, that is okay. In fact, if you find yourself crying, that is pretty much expected. If you find yourself wishing to compensate, it's natural, but keep going and don't compensate. Acknowledge the eating disorder voice, but know that you don't have to listen to it. During recovery, don't become complacent. I know it's tough, I know the fight is exhausting, but keep going, because you'll win one battle, then another, and winning that full fight is so worth it. If you are struggling though, don't hesitate to reach out. You don't have to do it alone. I do provide some one-to-one coaching services, so find the link to that in the description, or choose any other way to hold yourself accountable until you find that source of accountability and responsibility within yourself. Because I know you'll find that, and I know you all have been fighting. So thanks so much for watching this video. Thanks so much for sticking with me in my journey. And see you guys next week for another video.